questions about the positions, the unfilled positions and stuff like that. So I think this does a pretty good job of answering those questions. I know it's an awful lot of information. Lynn got it out to you sooner than in the past. Obviously, the pushing this meeting back from last Thursday to this Tuesday gave a little bit more time. Is there any questions from any of the people that either presented these questions or anyone else as far as the information that Lynn has presented?
Yes, I do. So on the first one, the updated contractual yada, yada, yada. So of the 4 different sections, is it the first one we have no control over, or is it all of them we have no control over?
It's the first one, Steve, that we have no control over.
Okay,
The other three, we have a certain amount of control over.
okay, great, thank you. This is good information, thanks.
Steve, does this answer all of your questions and concerns that you had from your original email a couple of weeks ago? Do you feel better about it?
Well, it gives me more information. It doesn't settle.
It's not warm and fuzzy
my
feeling now.
issues. It just makes it clearer, so
Yeah.
we can discuss it, I hope.
Mhm.
I had a question. I hope it's not a silly question, but it looks to be on the second document, maybe page 10 and all of this. At the very bottom, it says total anticipated salary of unfilled positions, 565,301, and then total budgeted anticipated health and benefits for unfulfilled positions. So when I add those together, I come up to about 825. So that's the amount that it would have cost to have the unfulfilled positions filled. It would increase the budget by that amount.
Last year. No, those positions were included in last year's budget. The budget that was approved last year. We just weren't able to fill them with people in those positions. We may have subs in them now, but those positions are currently in the budget. Those were budgeted last year, but I think it was Steve had asked, or no, it might have been Cindy had asked, what positions did we have in the budget last year that we weren't able to fill?
So this 825 is included in the budget that we're looking at now.
Everything that you see, all these
Correct.
positions that you see, the ones that haven't been filled and the ones that we had from last year that we were unable to fill, and any position that we've made modifications to, every position that we're advocating for, be they new or be they positions that were in the budget last year that weren't able to fill, are included in the budget that you have this year.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, I think that's an area where we should be looking and seeing if there's any possible savings we could get from that.
Well, I mean, do you want to go down through and talk about each of these positions?
Ask a quick question about revenue. I know we're kind of talking expenses, but
I don't know if you're on.
thought I was. Can people hear me? Yeah. So my question is, do we have any idea what the thoughts may be on if there's going to end up being a curtailment next year? What's the worry that the state's not going to be able to provide everything that they're anticipating?
Yeah, we were, I chuckle only because this is a hot topic among superintendents right now. We don't see any curtailment in the current ED 279. So I anticipate the money that the state says they're going to give us this year, we will get. What we anticipate will probably happen is we'll see it on the other end next year. And that there will be possible curtailment. Now, the commissioners avoided the word curtailment, but you got to take into account that all this unemployment, everything's coming from pretty much the same kitty of money. So there is concern that there's a possibility we could see a considerable reduction in what we get from state subsidy next year. So at this point, we're anticipating that the state says we're going to get, we will get, which is built into this budget. But moving forward, there's no guarantee. They could.
My point was a curtailment can come at any time. And so I think we need to be proactive in our budgeting to anticipate that maybe the state isn't going to be able to fully get us our resources. Just another thing to consider, because I know we haven't really talked much about revenue, but got to have the money to spend it.
So I guess we could go down through the position information for FY 2021 and go down through each of those and get people's thoughts, concerns on that. Do you want to start that?
Are you talking unfilled positions? Is that the ones that, I think that's what
Yeah, the ones
Steve
that
is.
we're looking to fill.
Steve, are you talking the unfilled positions or the new proposed positions or all?
I think I would say mostly the unfilled, and I'm aware that this is not going to be a popular
Yeah,
subject, but
it's a difficult situation we're in, and as I've said all along, I think this is a budget that reflects the needs of the district. I have concerns that we are going to be having students come to us that are going to miss 6 months of direct instruction from professional educators. So all these positions, as needed as they were in the past, I think are going to be in need to provide support for our students when they do eventually, and they will get back to us. But that being said, I also understand the situation that we're in, and a lot of the members of our community are in as well. So
I'm wondering, I know when we have a budget, if we have money in a certain cost center, there's only, like, we can't really move. What is it? We can move 5% or something if we have an emergency. Is there a way to take the monies, this $800,000, and put it somewhere that if we really need to hire those people, we can make the decision and hire them? And if we don't, at some point, we can give it back to the community? I don't know.
there's talk of reserve accounts and emergency reserve accounts, and to be honest with you, the direction, everyone's kind of cautious about that because there's really not a lot of good direction as far as what those may or may not look like. Lynn, I don't know if you've had any more correspondences regarding that. I know Main School Management is working with Drummond Woodson to come up with language to guide people through the budget process. With the budget, with votes being pushed back to July, people are seeing that as a little more window of time to try to get budgets done. We'd like to get it done, obviously, in April, and then it may just have to sit there for a while until we can move forward with it. But I don't know, have you heard anything more about those counts? You and I were talking a little bit about it last week.
I've just heard mixed opinions on it. Some people, some of the business managers are planning on trying to do it, and others are saying that they don't want any part of it. And in some cases, some of the districts are thoroughly associated with the towns, and the towns are putting a stop to it and not letting the districts do it.
So that cleared that up a lot for you, didn't it, Steve? Well, as we get more information about that, we will certainly be able to, bring that to the board and share that with you. But right now, it's an unknown. I will tell you that there are superintendents already talking about almost starting the school year off day one with a budget freeze in anticipation of a curtailment, or starting as early as October 1st, with a budget freeze similar to what we actually had started ours earlier. It was in November, Lynn, I think, or October, November, might have been November, we froze ours.
Yeah, it's
Some
November.
districts this year hadn't done that, and they obviously are doing it now. But they're talking next year about starting off that way as well. So I don't know, if you want to go through and Steve, I guess is what I'm asking, I'm wondering is, did you want to hear justification for the positions? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm looking at the list and I'm thinking that would take an awful lot of time, but I guess what I would say is that I would like you and your administrators, with the board's approval, to look at this, the positions that are covered under this $800,000, and maybe give us some justification in writing at another time. And so we can see if we want to go down this unpopular road.
I think what Todd has asked in the past is if the board can, just like what you said, Steve, give them some direction, like give them a percentage or, you know, a dollar amount that you would like to see taken out of the budget and see if they can reach that. But you're right, we need to give Todd direction on what the board would like to see. And I think you're right, Steve. I think that's a start. Is there any other concern that others would like to see done? No. Okay.
I guess I'm looking, oops, sorry, am I still, yeah, I'm looking at the overall, the initial sheet that we get, and I'm looking at the budget coming in to locals at a 3.15%. I'm looking at the pink sheet that,
The very first set.
I'm looking at the very first page, actually, I believe it is, the revenue sources, and I'm just looking at the increase from previous year to this year. And right now it's at 3.15% to the taxpayers, I guess. What would be a palatable increase to locals, I guess, or if you look at the overall budget, I mean, what would be what do we think is palatable? Oh, is it a chat question?
I don't see.
No, she did put it in chat. She has a question.
I'm trying to find her. Oh, there she is.
Hi, can you hear
Hi,
me?
Nicole. Yep.
So your comment or your mention was that we should target a certain amount or a percentage that we want to decrease it, but I kind of think it's hard to do that without knowing what's a necessity, what is a want, and what is a would be nice. I think if we separated things between that and kind of cut the would be nices and the wants and focus more on the necessities, then we could have that budget presented to us and we can make a judgment based on that rather than us just saying, you know, we want you to cut it down this much percent or this much money.
You know, I would say, and probably every superintendent that puts one of these in front of you says similar, but there's nothing in here that I would say is fluff or luxury. I think everything that's in this budget is a need. And it's probably looking at what, you know, is needed more than less, I guess, but I don't think, and certainly administrators can chime in as well, but I really, as I go through this budget and look at it, I don't see anything in here that's a luxury item or a fluff of any kind. I really see a need for everything that we have in this budget. I think that the team did a nice job of putting it together. But that being said, I understand that, you know, you can have needs and still not be able to fill them. But to do that, I think if I go back, every administrator that has a position on here is going to say it's a need. I think, you know, the justification and then maybe us trying to work as a group to prioritize that need is something we could probably do.
Then I think maybe we would have to ask a different way then, because I know that you and the administrators are gonna say, for instance, which one was it? The guidance counselor or was a big one?
Social worker.
The social worker. I mean, okay, there's a need for that position. Did any children really not get educated and were forgotten or pushed to the side of the system because we didn't have that social worker there?
Christina, that's a high school position, so I'm gonna look to you. I know you are new in the position this year, so you don't know what they may or may not have had for services last year. But I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think what happens is, my time ends up getting sucked up quite a bit by some of those needs. Because when a kid is in crisis, you have to deal with that. So I think it's just a matter of, yeah, we make it work, we piece it together, but it's sucks from all the other things that you're trying to do at the school. And I'm not a social worker. I by no means have that certification. And I mean, we're lucky we have Rose there, who's always great and can make the correct phone calls when we need. We do have suicide prevention and other trainings like that, but these kids come in with a lot of baggage, and it's really interesting to see that we actually don't have the position here. That I was shocked by that, to be honest. So I don't know if that answered the question or not.
I mean, we certainly, this administrative concern, oops, sorry.
It's Lorene. Is it okay if I talk?
Yeah, please go right ahead, Lorraine.
The other part about that position is there are quite a few students that have social work services in their IEPs at the high school. So the person that's a K-8 social worker was trying to fill that, but she was just basically doing the bare necessities, 3/4 of a day or 1 day a week. We also use that position to do supervision for our billing for main care. And without that, our main care monies were dropped this year because we didn't have that position. So that impact also is something that I would want to make sure people were aware of.
I just wanted to ask, could you run down the current social work position? I know there's a request for change in that as well, how that differs from what you're asking for.
Are you asking me, Julie? Is it Julie?
Anyone, I don't know, anybody.
So I think that the reason is because the social worker for K-8 has only worked 4 days a week. Well, yeah, like 4 days 1 week and 5 the next. And we had to increase that in order to cover the IEPs that were happening at the high school. We didn't have enough time for her to get all the IEP coverage in the elementary school plus the high school without doing that. And the board approved that last year. So if they cut the social worker at the high school, we would have to keep her at that position at full time in order to even then we're just barely covering, but it just doesn't enable us to help many of the regular ed kids. It impacts the principal's access to social work services to help with regular ed students. So did I say that too discombobulated? Julie, you want me to say?
Well, I don't think it's clear. So the elementary position is 9/10 of a job, correct?
It's full-time now, that because we could not fill that elementary position, we came to the board and asked to increase that position this year to
Right.
a full-time position, so it's full-time.
And how would the high school position differ? Would it still be supporting special ed billing and student access who have requirements for counseling?
It would go back to what it was in the past. So that in the past, it supported billing, it supported the day treatment a lot, and it also helped regular ed kids whenever the need arose. Actually had a number of regular ed kids that actually saw the social worker on a regular basis, but the majority of the students that had regular appointments weekly were special ed kids, but maybe 25% were regular ed. So I would envision that it would go back to something similar to that if we filled that position. Is that clear? And also, Lynn did a really nice job of outlining this in the packet. She explained that the justification for the increase would be with keeping the K-8 social worker at full-time instead of drop. She did it on her pages, and she did a really nice job explaining it.
If I may, it's still though, I mean, you know, we have no idea of what we're gonna have for kids next year, right? And we do have parents who, and other taxpayers who are not working and may take a huge financial hit from this. Maybe they won't, maybe they won't. That's what, you know, but I don't see how we, I mean, maybe is the 800,000 all the ones were not covered by substitutes or everything? If they are, how do we, I know you need them. And if I could give you the money, I'd give you a $10 million budget increase. You know, teachers are wonderful, but how do we tell the parents, the taxpayers, that we've got $800,000 in the budget that we didn't even use, and we want to keep it there because we need it? And everybody got educated. And you know, I know it's not easy, but it happens.
Some of those positions that are open, Steve, are positions that people were retired, so they were filled by staff people. If you look under the unfilled positions, we were paying out for those positions. One was filled by a long-term substitute for the 1920 school year. There was an employee in one for a person that's retiring, filled by an employee, another retiree. So these are positions that are currently, will be vacant next year, that are currently in the budget, but that doesn't mean they weren't filled. They didn't just sit there not occupying a person or salary this year.
Okay, but then that's the point. What of this can we look at, you know? And I don't want to use the social worker again as the example, because I know that's a touchy one, but that position was not filled by anyone, even though we approved it, because everyone, you know, they said they needed it and we agreed, and I agreed also, but it didn't get filled. So how do we justify to the taxpayers that that's still in the budget?
Just to clarify, there are currently 2 positions in that list of unfilled that were not filled this school year. The rest of them were filled either by employees who are retiring at the end of this year, or by long-term subs, because we had some people out on leaves. So the only 2 that were unfilled this year were the 9 through 12 social worker and the K-8 guidance counselor.
And a portion of the social worker was covered because we added in a day a week. So a portion of that was covered.
Well, I think it's a place to start. We have asked Todd and the administrators to go back and go through it, and yeah, I don't know how to approach it, whether it be a percentage or a dollar amount, you know, and like Todd said, everything that's on here is a necessity. None of it is fluff. So I don't know how you would go about.
Just a little bit more information for everybody. I just added up the salary and proposed benefits costs for both of those two positions and came out to a total of 142,508.
And what two was that?
Social worker.
The
That was
social-
for the 9 through 12 social worker and the K to 8 guidance counselor.
And that's a sizable amount of money.
That's the most you'll increase to your locals for this year.
And when are we gonna have any idea about the number of students next year? Or probably not till next year.
Well, the thing that's going to be a little challenging this year, obviously you can take your class enrollment, you can just move it forward here, but obviously we're running into some situations with our enrollment for pre-K, possibly K. We're talking as an administrative team today, trying to figure out how do we do that remotely? How do you enroll kids? So that we know what we're losing for seniors. It's going to be awful tough to determine what we have coming in for pre-K. I would expect we'll see enrollments once we're back in the building, probably, you know, after the school year up. I would imagine we'd still see people coming and enrolling students in. So it's difficult to say what that is going to look like for next year. I'm looking at Brenda. She happens to be sitting across from me. Is there any idea what you're looking at for pre-K or?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they're just adjust over here too. They just started the information. The process has just begun, but it's also going to be more challenging this year because of the state of things.
I can also just add a little bit to that, just from a data management perspective. Student enrollment doesn't usually shake out until sometime at the end of September, third, fourth week of September. And that's why they do the October 1st child count, because you have so much movement in the first few weeks of school. People that either move into the district or people that leave the district. And so it takes a while for the dust to settle on that before you can get a more accurate count of what your enrollment is.
Okay. Well, I think that's something that we've given Todd and the administrators, something to work on there and bring back. One other thing that does come to my mind, Lynn, am I correct that the strategic plan that's in the budget was that only budgeted $18,000? And that was to start hiring somebody to start.
Yes, so there is $18,000 currently in this budget that you're looking at for the first year of the strategic plan, which is basically just getting someone in here to start the process. It covers the first year only.
Yeah,
But
what they
if
would do,
that's- it
yeah.
can certainly be removed if we need to.
that first year would kind of address what Steve's question was. It gives they'll do a 5-year projection, student enrollment projection.
Right.
So you would have a 5-year projection of what your student enrollment would look like. They would also do an analysis of your buildings and tell you what they thought the best utilization of your buildings were, utilization of your staff and things like that. It would be a 2-year process because in the second year would be the rollout and getting the stakeholders involved and, you know, moving forward with whatever changes might be recommended.
So I just want to speak on that because we made a commitment to keep that in a budget for this year moving forward. Back when we were talking about all the different options when we had a different superintendent. And I feel like we're never going to get anywhere by just throwing this out again and again every now and then. We really need to have a professional or someone who can guide us toward what those next steps are. Unless somebody has all of a sudden gotten the skill set to do that, which, you know, I don't think anybody really wants to take that on as a personal challenge. I know I don't. So I think we owe it to our taxpayers and our teachers and the future of whatever happens in our district to follow through with that promise. And I really, really would balk at taking that money out at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm not anti leaving it in there by any means. You know, and I agree, you can't keep kicking the can down the road, but, you know, no more than we got public participation in any of our visits to any of the schools. I just didn't know if it was something that we wanted to wait another year on. If the board wants to leave it in there, I'm all for leaving it in there. It's totally fine.
Joe Prince has a question in the text box for you.
And I can chime in and ask it verbally as well. I just felt like, Kim, I heard you say, our question is clear to the administrators what we'd like. And I guess as someone sitting here, I don't feel like it's yet clear. And without a target of what we're shooting for, I just worry we could waste a lot of time having conversation. Are we talking about X amount of dollars or Y amount of dollars or percentage? Because as we know, a budget, just like in your house, you could decide to not buy a new car and that makes up a huge chunk of money, or you could save $5 on every grocery bill. And I think we need a little bit more guidance if we're gonna be able to effectively give you feedback.
And I agree, Joe. That's
Okay.
exactly what I was saying. I was trying to
Awesome.
get.
I thought you were saying we knew what our charge was, and I was like, oh, I missed it then. So thank
No.
you, Kim.
No, I think it would help you guys and Todd tremendously if they knew what the board would like
Or,
to see.
and again, a range or a percentage. I don't know what the easiest way to do it is if you are indeed asking for a reduction. But I think a target, we can then have really good dialogue about how does that balance out across the district.
Right. Cindy?
So I had a couple things. One, I put in the chat, and I'm sure Lynn will need to look at it, so we may not get an answer tonight, but it was, what would the percentage increase in the budget be if we only did the contractual obligations increases that were met? So that would be like collective bargaining agreements and the insurance, those things that we had no option. What would the percent budget increase be? So basically flat budget, except for those that were obligated for. And then the other thing, I know, Steve, you had addressed the positions that weren't filled last year, but I also think we need to look at some of the requests, new requests for this year. Basically, the only way you can really save any kind of money is with, unfortunately, positions or large facility projects. So cutting little bits from this line and that line don't typically add up to enough to really do much, except make people a little bit angry and frustrated. So, but it sounds like the admin wants more specific direction on a dollar or percentage amount. So I'm not sure how we want to arrive at that. But I am curious about the what the percentage increase in the budget would be if we basically had a flat budget.
Lynn, are you clear on what, is that something that we can generate relatively easily?
Yes, I wrote that down. Cindy, if you can give me a day or so, I can calculate that and send it in an email to everybody on the board, just so you have that information. Does that work?
That would be fantastic. I didn't anticipate you'd be able to just pull it right off the top of your head tonight. So thank you.
And I had a question. I know that we usually do middle of the road when we pick a potential teacher. Is there a reason why 9 to 12 ELA full-time salary is step 9 and the other one's 12?
That's a good question. I am going to defer to Tiki on that one because I honestly can't remember off the top of my head why we did that.
Okay.
I think the step 12 one, Jessica, was because of the person that was retiring had so much experience, so we just went middle of the road with that one. The step 9, I believe, was about the same thing. It just, we kind of split in half what their years of experience were and went with that.
Okay.
That can certainly be changed though, as an option.
Okay.
Any
Um,
further direction?
Yeah, excuse me. This thing about the step, is that like a labor grade or something?
I believe, and again, Tiki can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it has to do with the level of experience from the staff member as well as their educational background. So for example, a teacher that might have a master's or a doctorate will come in at a higher step than someone who just graduated with their teaching degree.
Yep, and that is correct, Lynn. You have it.
And so we're going at step 9 or 12 in hopes of the applicants being willing to take the job for that.
Well,
instead-
when you budget for positions like this, Steve, you always, it's common practice in every district to budget middle of the road because you don't want to pigeonhole yourself in. If you budget at a step 1, you've restricted yourself to a first year teacher. You never know what you're going to get for applicants. So whenever budgets are created with teaching positions, it's usually middle of the road, middle of the steps, depending on the steps in the district is where the salary starts. And you always budget for a family plan with a strong possibility you might get a single subscriber, but you always budget for that. You try to cover yourself so you don't come up short.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm reluctant to tell or give guidance on the actual percentage change we're looking for until we hear from Lynn on what just the contractual obligations would be. So I'm wondering if we could put that off until Thursday. I think Lynn would have that information for us. And if you guys, the admin team is looking for a certain percentage, if we know at a minimum what we have to increase, then we might be better prepared to give you specific direction.
Add versus take it away.
Hmm?
To add a percentage versus taking away a percentage or two.
Right. So right now it's what, 7.8% increase? Well, if our contractual obligations say are 2%, then maybe we aim for somewhere in between. We're not going to say we only want a 1% increase if our contractual obligations are higher than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much.
So Lynn said she could do that in a day, and I'm sure she can. She just pulled all this stuff together in a short period of time, but that'll give her, you might not have it till Thursday evening.
Right, but what I'm saying is maybe by Thursday, we can give the admin team the direction they need to start figuring out where to whittle away.
And the admin team has a meeting Thursday morning. We're doing virtual meetings. We're actually doing multiple meetings a week. So we can certainly delve into these positions. It seems like the positions are primarily where people are looking or where the questions are. So we certainly can go into these positions, and as a collective, we can discuss them. I hate to start tiering positions. I hate to do that. But I mean, we certainly can discuss these positions and come up with the merits for them. And perhaps prioritize so we have something in the wings if we have to. Or facility, I mean, we can. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? I guess you don't have anything else. All right.
Do any administrators? I know a couple of you have chimed in. Any other administrators have anything they want to add while you have the board's here?
No. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Well, at least till Thursday. Okay. I guess.
Julie's not here.
No.
I mean,
Jesse's not here.
Jesse's not here.
Exactly. Okay. Yes, we are at 6:30,
That's a monthly board meeting.
right, and that's here?
Yes.
Here at Mount Abram on Thursday,
Or remote.
Hmm?
Or remote.
or remote, yes. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being there tonight. Stay healthy, stay safe. Are you waving at me, Jeffrey? Oh, hi. Oh.
He's waving his
Okay.
screen.
Would Cindy, you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
I will second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess I should say anybody object, because I can't see everybody's pictures. I'm going to assume everybody's okay with it. Okay, meeting adjourns at 6:53. Thank you, everyone.